Good morning, friends. Today we are going to learn the next part of the module number 4, the power and the glory. In the previous lecture, we see the life and background of the Graham Greene and the story outline with the little bit of critical commentary on it. Now we will learn about what is the only summary of the power and the glory. In a particular Mexican state, the church outlawed and the priest driven underground by the threat of being shot. After several months, word went out from the governor's office that there was still one priest who was moving from village to village, carrying on the work of the church by administering the sacraments and saying masses. A young lieutenant of police, an ardent revolutionist, and an anti clerical persuaded his chief to let him search for the priest, who, as the authorities saw it, was guilty of treason. Two photographs were pasted up together in the police station. One was a picture of an American bank robber who had killed several police officers in Texas. The other was that of the priest. No one noticed the irony, least of all the young lieutenant, who was far more interested in arresting the clergyman. While the officer was receiving permission to make a search for the priest was already in the village, having come there in order to get aboard a boat that would take him to the city of Veracruz and safety before the priest could board the boat. Word came to him that an Indian woman was dying several miles inland. True to his calling, the priest mounted a mule and set out to administer the last rites to the dying woman, even though he realized that he might not find another ship to carry him to safety. There was one other priest in the vicinity, Father Jose, but Father Jose had been cowardly enough to renounce the church, even to the point of taking a wife, a shrewish old woman. The authorities paid no attention to him at all, for they felt, and rightly so, that the priest who has renounced his vows was a detriment and the shame to the church. After completing his mission, the priest came back to the coast where he spent the night in a banana warehouse. The English manager on the plantation allowed him to hide there. The following day, hoping to find refuge from the police and from the revolutionary party of red shirts, he set out on the back of a mule for the interior. As he traveled, he thought of his own past and of himself as a poor example of the priesthood. For the priest was a whiskey priest, a clerk who would do almost anything for a drink of spirits. In addition, he had, in a moment of weakness, fathered a child by a woman in an inland village, thinking himself a weak man and a poor priest. He was still determined to carry on the work of the church as long as he could, not because he wanted to be a martyr, but because he knew nothing else to do. After 12 hours of travel, he reached the village where his one time mistress and his child lived. The woman took him in overnight, and the following morning he said a mass for the villagers. Before he could escape, the police entered the village. Marcia claimed him as her husband and his child. A little grown girl of 7 named him as her father. In that manner, because of his earlier sins, he escaped. Meanwhile, the police had decided on a new tactic, tactics in uncovering the fugitive. As they passed through each village, they took a hostage. When a certain length of time had passed without the apprehension of the priest, a hostage was shot. In that manner, the lieutenant of police in charge of the hunt, hoped to betray their priest. After the police had left the village without discovering him, the priest mounted his mule and went on his way. He traveled northward in an effort to escape the police and, if possible, to make his way temporarily into another state. Some hours after leaving the village, the priest met with a native who fell in with him. Before long, the half breed discovered the priest for whom the police were searching. He promised that he, a good Catholic, would not betray the secret, but the priest was afraid that the promise of 700 pesos would be too much of a temptation for the poor man. When they reached a town, however, it was the priest's own weakness which out him into the hands of the police. He had to have some liquor, the sale of which was against the law. He managed to but some illegally, but his possession of the contraband was discovered by one of revolutionary red shirts, who raised a cry after him. Tracked down by a poses, the priest was caught and placed in jail. Fortunately, he was not recognized by the police, but since he had no money, he was kept in jail to work out the fine. The lieutenant of police who was in searching feverishly for him unexpectedly did the priest a good turn. Seeing the ragged old man working about the jail, the lieutenant stopped to talk with him. The priest claimed to be a vagrant who had no home of his own. The lieutenant, feeling sorry for the old fellow, released him and gave him a present of 5 pesos. Leaving town, the priest started out across the country to find a place of temporary safety. After traveling for some time, he met an Indian woman who could speak only a few words of Spanish. She managed to make him understand that something was wrong with her child. He went with her and found that her baby had been shot. His immediate guess was that the American bandit had done the deed. After performing rites over the child, the priest continued his flight. He eventually made his way into the next state, where he was given sanctuary by a German plant owner. After resting a few days, he planned to go to a city and present his problems to his bishop. Before he could leave, however, he was told that the American bandit, a Catholic, was dying and needed the priest. The priest answered the call, even though he was sure he was being led into a trap. The bandit was really dying, but he lay in the state from which the priest had just escaped. With him was a party of police waiting for the priest's appearance in order to arrest him. Immediately after the bandit's death, the police closed in and the priest was captured, taken back to the capital of state and tried for treason. He was found guilty and sentenced to be shot. The lieutenant of police, who felt sorry for the old priest, tried to persuade Father Jose to hear his last confession, but Father Jose feared the authorities and refused. The priest was laid out and shot without the benefit of the church grace. Yet the lieutenant of police had not succeeded in removing the church influence. In the evening of the day on which the priest died, another priest made his was in secret into the town where the execution had taken place. So, in this way, this is the short summary of the novel Power and the Glory. In the next lecture, we will see who are the characters from the novels and the theme of the novel.